All right, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the S&P Sports Show. I'm your host, Sean Stewart, and it
Oop, oop.
is October 4th, 2022. Glad to have you on the program alongside my co-host, Mr. Anthony Paulus. How are you doing, my friend?
We're doing good. We're doing good. Hopefully, some of the technical snafus from Thursday. We're doing
And
a whole new week. Whole new week.
and by the way, we actually have a special guest, by the way, and his name is V. Eugene. He'll come on the show at
Special.
8:25 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and there will be no Super Draft player props because baseball season is about to be winding down. So just want to let you guys know. So tomorrow is like the last day for the season, right?
Well, all the playoff spots are now decided. I mean, other than the National League East, which is pretty much a foregone conclusion, I believe. Um, the Mets pretty much had it wrapped up and figured out a way to blow it. Maybe they won't blow the playoffs, but that's another story for another day. I will say this: lots of children in Ethiopia will be getting free New York Mets Eastern Division Championship shirts because I did see them. So I'm sure there'll be some needy children out there getting some free T-shirts.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, hard to believe. Free T-shirts. So,
Wow.
yeah, interesting week. Interesting games that happened this weekend. So let's start off with college because I know we're going
That's
to be
what I was
talking a
going
lot
to
of
say.
NFL the second half.
Especially with
So,
Michigan's performance against Iowa, and they also covered the spread, which surprised me.
hey, first win at Iowa since
2005.
since 2005. Only the second team this century to be a ranked team to beat Iowa by double digits at Iowa.
Wow.
So that was pretty impressive. Hey, you know what? As long as we're winning, you know what? People talk about style and blowing teams out. You know what? I don't mind winning 27-13, 34-13. Let Ohio State go ahead and run up the score on scrub teams and do fake punts when you're up 49-10. And you know what? Because what really matters is that your team is prepared and it's set and it's physical and plays beast mode when you play those other teams like that. You get through this week's game against Indiana, then you got a big game at home against Penn State. Okay?
Gotcha.
And this, major bragging rights in the Big Ten East in this game. Because if you can get through Penn State, then you got your bye week. Then you got your rivalry game against Michigan State, right?
Right.
Then you got what's left after that? You got what? Rutgers,
That's a no-brainer.
Nebraska, and Illinois. Okay, and Illinois is no slouch. Look what they did to Wisconsin this past weekend.
And Wisconsin
And it's
fired their coach.
ironic. And it's ironic, Sean, that last week on Tuesday and Thursday's show, what was I talking about with Wisconsin?
They're going to fire their coach, which they did
And
Sunday.
what happened?
They did that.
So I don't want to say I'm psychic or anything, but, you could pretty much say I saw it coming, which I did. I was talking about who the next coaches could be. Lance Leopold and Dave Arundel. Got to be the top two names. But you know what's crazy, Sean? Before we get into some of the other college things that happened during the weekend, is that there are 4 major Power 5 jobs already available. Arizona State, Colorado, Nebraska, and now Wisconsin. 4 Power 5 jobs already. I would probably say at this point Wisconsin's is the most attractive if it's available. the question is how does Wisconsin perform under Jim Leonard the rest of the way? Or do they just abandon ship and go in a whole new direction? You got Nebraska, which I don't think is as an attractive job as Wisconsin. You have Arizona State, which, while an attractive job, you don't know what's happening with the Pac-12. And then you have Colorado in the Pac-12, which has been pretty much a football mess for the last decade. I mean, Mel Tucker's thankful that his 5-7 season at Colorado landed him the Michigan State job, and this bountiful $95 million harvest. That jet lag from that trip at Washington must really be affecting that team, who have gotten smoked 3 weeks in a row like a North Carolina barbecue mesquite cook-off. They've been smoked. Okay? I don't want to even think what Michigan's going to do in a rivalry game if that team plays like it is right now. And Maryland's a pretty damn good team. Let me say this. Maryland will probably play in a decent bowl game this year. If they play like they have and play like they're capable of, that Maryland team can win 9 games. I mean, they're not going to beat Ohio State, but they can hang with Penn State, I think, depending. You know, I want to see what Michigan and Penn happens in that Michigan and Penn State game, because that's going to dictate what's going to happen, I feel, to a degree, when Maryland and Penn State play.
I was going to say.
I think that game's going to be very close, but that's a future game, you know.
Right.
You know, with this upcoming top 25 schedule. But there was a lot of good games this weekend, Sean. I mean, Ole Miss and Kentucky went down to the wire, kind of like I said it would, right?
Yes,
and Ole Miss pulled it off. So that was nice.
And then Wake Forest beat Florida State.
Yeah, so. Like I said, pretty much. I was not right about North Carolina State with Clemson.
We were both wrong.
I don't know that Clemson should have rushed the field, but let me say this, okay? North Carolina State did beat Clemson last year, but right. I think this may also somewhat prove how weak the ACC is. I mean, I'm sorry. What has the ACC done so far?
They haven't made any noise lately in football.
Who have they beat out of conference? I think the biggest out-of-conference win in the ACC so far, well, it's Florida State and LSU, but LSU isn't all that this year. And
even though they did beat Auburn by 4.
Yeah, Penn State smoked Auburn, but Auburn's not good. Okay? Right. I mean, the ACC, I mean, Clemson's biggest win is Wake Forest, and you beat North Carolina State. You just beat it's Cupcake City pretty much the rest of the way.
And then you get past Notre Dame.
It's Cupcake City. You know what? Clemson's got a beautiful path to probably finishing undefeated. But they got no defense. And if they got to go against like Georgia or Alabama, they're going to get smoked because they have no defense. And then offense will be put under caps because the defense is just not good at Clemson. I'm sorry. If North Carolina State could have pulled that game off, I mean, they could have probably jumped up 4 or 5 places in the polls and, really established themselves in that program. 2 years in a row beating Clemson. Clemson's got a very cupcake path the rest of the way. They're probably going to run the table. So you got to think that right now they're going to probably be like the 4 seed or a 3 seed in the end, undefeated.
And then you also got Oklahoma State. They beat Baylor. Baylor blew that game.
Yeah, yep. Oklahoma State could run the table, but I think a more interesting game this week is TCU and Kansas. Game day, live at Kansas this week. Both teams are undefeated.
That's on ESPN, if I'm not mistaken.
It is. Hey, if TCU does what they did to Oklahoma this weekend, was beat the living breaks off them. I mean, they beat Oklahoma like Oklahoma owed them money, okay? And they were late paying the VIG, okay? I mean, they came with the baseball bats and the brass knuckles and laid a beat down. I mean, I can't remember the last time a Big 12 team did that to Oklahoma. Can you? I can't.
No, it's like a close one, I see, but not no
I
big
mean, they
blowout.
usually lose, but it's close. But they don't get blown out. Now, let me say this about Oklahoma, okay? And I touched about this last week. Caleb Williams, not there. Top wide receiver, not there. One of the top running backs, not there. Two defensive players, not there. Where are they all at?
USC.
They're at USC. Exactly. They're at USC. So you lost 5 starters. You're probably your top 5. Kind of makes a difference.
And what do you think about the chances in the Big 12 in the college football playoffs? Because I'm thinking like since Baylor lost and Oklahoma State left, then their chances of getting to the college football playoff is like slim. Because they got
Oklahoma State's going to have to run the table. They need to hope that Baylor pretty much. The best thing for Oklahoma State is, and I don't know who's all on their schedule, right?
I can check. You talk about Oklahoma State or Baylor?
Oklahoma State, I would say Oklahoma State and TCU. Because right now, I mean, if I was to guess, TCU is probably going to beat Kansas this week. That's my guess. Okay?
Right. I'll have to look it
so
up right
let's say TCU beats Kansas. Who does TCU have left on the schedule? And do they play Oklahoma State?
All right. So I got the schedule right now. So Oklahoma State, oh my goodness, up on one. Because I'm looking at it right now. Let me go on Wikipedia. Doggone it. Sometimes it's technology.
So Oklahoma State, if somehow TCU can run the table and not play Oklahoma State till the Big 12 title game, and somehow they're both undefeated, the winner's probably going to the playoff. Okay?
Got it.
So I don't know.
Got it.
I don't know if they play each other this season.
Okay, I got it.
So
I got the schedule for Oklahoma State.
Okay. Who does Oklahoma State have?
So their next game is Texas Tech on October the 8th, and then on the 15th, they have to play TCU on the 15th. So it's at TCU on the 15th.
There you go. So they play each other. Winner, if TCU beats Kansas, if TCU wins this week and Oklahoma State wins this week, pretty much whoever wins that game the following week has to run the table. That's how a Big 12 team might be able to get it. Obviously, Oklahoma State beats TCU and an undefeated TCU. And let's say Kansas, they need like Kansas and they need, and Baylor kind of runs the table in Oklahoma, put it like this. If Oklahoma State runs the table, and then you got Clemson running the table.
Okay.
Right? Then you probably might have a case for 2 teams.
Oh, I think I thought we lost him. Now he's back. Okay.
Then you probably got
now
the Big Ten undefeated. Right now, that's kind of how I'm looking at things is you that would probably, and then you got USC, so you got 5 teams. You got USC and UCLA still undefeated, but that ain't gonna last.
Right, they're gonna lose. I can see that.
The question is USC hasn't exactly played like world beaters the last 2 weeks.
Right. It's been kind of cupcake.
Now they got to go to Utah this week on the road. This is their first real test.
Right.
Okay. This is their first real test. Because playing at Utah ain't easy.
Because they did lose. They lose to them before in the Pac-12 championship before.
Well, playing on the road at Utah ain't easy. You can ask Jim Harbaugh in Michigan about that. Okay. And the fact that this Utah team is pretty damn good. Okay. If USC goes in there and gets a W, then we know they're pretty legit. Okay. Because, I mean, Utah went to Florida and lost. So the question is Utah's now at home.
Right.
And USC, this is like their first real road test. How are they going to perform to adversity on the road against a good team?
Exactly.
USC loses this game, and the Pac-12 is getting nothing.
Right.
Okay? So I'm also kind of curious at how well, how the refs are going to handle this game knowing that USC is going to the Big Ten. It's going to be kind of interesting.
Exactly. Big Ten people anyway, so
I think that'll be really interesting to see. You got Michigan this week in a little bit of a possible trap game at Indiana. Then you got Ohio State this weekend. Are they on bye week this weekend? At Alabama. What do we got for the top 25 schedule this week?
All right, let me get the top 25. So you have TCU and Kansas. That's a noon game. Then you got Tennessee and LSU. That's a noon game.
Okay, so you got 8 versus 25. That should be interesting. Hey, Tennessee wins that game. It sets up for a nice possible undefeated clash against Alabama in a couple weeks.
And then you have Utah going at UCLA. That's a 3:30 game. That's in Los Angeles.
Is that Utah against USC or Utah against
Utah and UCLA? UCLA.
Oh, I like Utah in that game.
Gotcha. And then, of course, we did say third-ranked Ohio State will face Michigan State at Lansing. So that's a no-brainer.
Man, there might not be a lot of it's going to be a sea of red at that game.
And then 20th-ranked Kansas State will play Iowa State. That's a 7:30 game.
I'll take Kansas State.
And
the close one.
16th-ranked BYU will face Notre Dame. That game's at Notre Dame, so that's NBC, of course, because NBC does the home games for Notre Dame. So that's a 7:30 game.
Battle of religious school, Mormons versus Catholics.
Right.
I'll take BYU.
Okay. Then it's a primetime game, Texas A&M and Alabama. That's a CBS game because CBS is going to do a doubleheader. That's an 8:00 game. That's a trap.
By the way, Aaron Judge just hit his 62nd homer.
That could be a trap game.
So just want to let people know Aaron Judge just hit number 62. So,
okay.
Anyways.
Thank you for letting me know that for the update. Appreciate that.
No problem. Nice smile. Anyways.
Thank you. I was saying Texas A&M and Alabama. That could be a trap game because Alabama hate Texas A&M.
Man, I don't know, man. Alabama, all that money they paid them recruits, man. Oof. I mean, A&M's played better lately, but man, not that much better. Bama will win.
Okay. Then you have Oregon, 12th ranked, will face Arizona. That's a 9:00 game.
I'll take Oregon.
Okay. 9th ranked Mississippi and Vanderbilt. That's a 4:00 game.
Yeah, that could be an ugly game for Vandy. I'll take Ole Miss.
Okay. Then Georgia is going to be at home. They're playing Auburn, so that should be a no-brainer.
That should be a blowout. Auburn is horrible right now.
Then you have 24th ranked Cincinnati. They're going to be hosting South Florida.
Cincinnati should win that.
Right. Then I don't think we touched Mississippi State. They're going to be hosting against Arkansas.
Is Mississippi State undefeated still?
Let me check. Mississippi State 4-1. They're 4-1.
I'll take Arkansas.
Oh, that's the first upset. Okay, for that week, this upcoming week. Then did I say 21 Washington and Arizona State? I don't think we touched that.
I'll take Washington. Arizona State's in shambles.
Exactly, especially the way they handled the incident with Herm Edwards. It's very ugly.
That's probably the least attractive of those Power 5 jobs because they're probably looking at some NCAA sanctions.
That's what it looks like. Then you got Kentucky. They're going to be hosting against South Carolina.
I'll take Kentucky.
I think. Let me see. We did. That's all the games we talked about. Because we did say that's well, that's gonna be a blowout. 5th ranked Clemson and Boston College. That should be a blowout.
Yep, that should be a blowout. Let me
go ahead.
Let me go a little off topic here.
Sure.
Is there a Heisman front runner yet?
That's a great question because it is about to be that season where they do the odds for the Heisman.
I don't really think anybody's truly established themselves yet. People might have C.J. Stroud at the top or whatever, but I don't see a front runner yet statistically, or anybody that's blown my mind to say, "Hey, you're that dude right now." It's not like last year where Bryce Young just you knew after a couple weeks. We haven't hit that point yet. And it's where somebody's just taking command. We don't have that yet this year, and we're going into week 6.
Right. Because they already actually we got the top 3, by the way. So right now is C.J. Stroud, Caleb Williams, and Bryce Young. Because Caleb Williams edged Bryce Young for the second place in this week's Heisman Trophy odds.
I mean, it's early, and those 3 are at the top, and rightfully so. But none of those 3 have separated from each other, and they're close, but nothing outstanding. Nothing outstanding so far. I mean, don't get me wrong, quarterback play's been good, but nothing like that's blown my damn mind. Like, whoa, I mean, C.J. Stroud didn't look great against Notre Dame.
And
he's played against 4 soft teams since. I mean, Caleb Williams, you haven't played anybody yet.
That's what I'm saying. They haven't played like real competition.
Okay. I mean, Alabama, you played Texas, you played Arkansas, you played against somebody. I mean, you probably, to me, had the most impressive performance of the 3 so far. I mean, there's been no real running back or wide receiver that's jumped off the charts to me so far. So at this point right now, it's like, nothing exciting, Sean, on like, wow, this dude is just blowing it open. It's been very mundane this year. And, it's kind of weird that it's been this mundane so far.
All right. So it's about to be 8:25, by the way. So I'm going to have him on the room right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my good friend, Mr. Mean Gene, all the way from Las Vegas, KDWN.
Hey, what's up, Sean? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. I love doing video. I love it more than doing audio. So glad to do both.
Yeah, this technology is pretty incredible, ain't it?
Exactly. And then your Eagles are like 4-0. They're undefeated.
Fly, Eagles, fly. They flying. They flying.
Y'all beat Jacksonville. I did watch it on the red zone.
Fly, Eagle, fly. Jalen Hurts, man. Just let's go ahead and talk about the Eagles first here. 4-0, only undefeated team in the league. How has Jalen Hurts progressed from last year to this year with this offense. He just seems a lot more comfortable. I watched him in the Lions game. The decision making was just spot on. Knew when to run, knew when to throw. Just seemed to hit everybody. I mean, I know the Lions' defense is bad. In fact, I have a new name for that defense. It's the no fence, because there's nothing. So the Lions' defense is now known as the no fence. But that's another topic we'll get into. But the Eagles, man, they're getting it done on offense and defense. I mean, Brandon Graham was Defensive Player of the Week. They had 9 sacks the weeks before. This past week, Jacksonville jumped out early, and then it was like the Eagles, like, we spotted you 14. That's nothing. All right, let's actually play now. Miles Sanders, I think it's a contract year for him. He's actually playing healthy for a change. The defense is solid. Looks like Darius Slay is back to his old self. What's going on with this Eagles team? How far can this team go?
Is that for me, guys?
Yeah.
Well, you're the Eagles fan.
Well, you know what? I tell you what. A lot of people had the Eagles favorite early on, and I wasn't really seeing that, because it's easy to say that on paper, right?
Right.
Until you see these games play. I wasn't much of a fan of Nick Sirianni, and just, and then I was worried about Jalen Hurts. But it seems like, having the weapons that he have with Devontae Smith and AJ Brown and Goddard, and I mean, they got it together. For some reason, they look like they are going to win the NFC East. And, they've had some hiccups when when you're down 14-0 to Jacksonville, and then you struggle with Detroit. I mean, I guess it's good to go through these things early in the season, because everyone is going to be waiting to see how they're going to play up against the Cowboys. You still got to beat your division, and
Exactly.
it's going to come down to Dallas, before I can really say what the Eagles are made of.
Speaking of Dallas, Cooper Rush has kept that team afloat after Dak and the hand issue and everything. And people, I think, almost wrote off the Cowboys immediately. Like, man, now we got the second string in there. Offense is going to go down. But this guy's played efficiently and well, and they've won every game this guy has started. And the defense has played very good. I mean, this is definitely probably a top 5, top 7 defense in the league. I mean, I watched them a little bit Sunday against the Commanders, and they pretty much shut things down besides one drive. I mean, they make Carson Wentz just look atrocious. I mean, you have very good knowledge of the Wentz experience, I would say post-injury, because I look at Carson Wentz as like one player up until he had that major injury. And then since then, he's been a different player with that. But the Cowboys defense is just getting it done. Now, offensively, yeah, they're not as strong on the run game in terms of the run blocking. And this is probably Ezekiel Elliott's last year, because after the season, there's no guaranteed money left on that contract, and they're not paying him $15 million next year, folks. Let's just get real with that. So in terms of the Cowboys, how well do you think that an Eagles matchup with the weapons that the Eagles now have, and then the defense, like I said, the Eagles defense looks pretty good. I mean, I think those two teams would play a very well, meaningful, physical, tough games against each other. I mean, those two games will probably determine the division. What's your take on Dallas, since they're a division rival?
Well, you know what? I mean, that division is always tough. I think it's going to come down to deciding whether or not when to bring Dak Prescott back, because Dallas got some big games coming up too, outside of Philly. They got the Rams.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
And I think they're going to roll with Cooper Rush until he runs up against a defense that's going to shake him up. It could be the Rams, it could be the Eagles, but I think ultimately, I think Dak is going to come back. Dak is just a little bit more seasoned against probably some of your better competition. Cooper has had some pretty easy competition right now, but I think it's going to come down to Dallas and the Eagles. But I think the Eagles, I like what Jalen Hurts is doing. I like that offense. I like the defense. I just think this is probably going to be the year for the Eagles, and I didn't see it coming. But I could also see them splitting, one at home and one away. But at the same time, it's going to come down to wins and losses in that division. Both Dallas and the Eagles are going to always beat up on the Commanders and the Giants. But hey, look at the Giants; they're 3-1, so you can't really count them out.
Yeah, you are leading right into my next area of topic here, the Giants. So it looks like Saquon Barkley kind of near a contract year. It's been injury prone. He's playing like a beast out there. Daniel Jones looking like a good running back out there with the running touch. The man can run except on 85-yard runs. The defense with the Giants, I think, is what has looked most improved this far. These past couple seasons beforehand, it's like the Giants had like nothing at linebacker, nothing on that line except for Marshall. The secondary wasn't that good.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a matter of so far of who they've played is just not that good? In terms of the Bears offense, which isn't that great. They've played Carolina. It's not like those 3 games that they've won are world beater games, I mean, is this more of a product of who they've played, or can this Giants team do something 3-1 in good mood and start winning games against better teams? I mean, yeah, they've had some injuries at wide receiver with Shepard now out, Kadarius Toney here and there. Kenny Galladay, the biggest free agent mess up, and man, gotta be regretting that $20 million mistake over a steak dinner. Hey, I believe you over a steak dinner. Yeah, we'll give you a 4-year, $80 million deal because I believe you. Enjoy your steak. Hey, if the Lions are going to pass on you, that's kind of telling you some signs there. Is this Giants team capable of maybe pulling out a 7 seed or a 6 team, or is this team going to come back down to earth?
Well, you know what? You got to remember, they beat a playoff team. Well, they beat the Titans. They beat the Titans in Tennessee.
Which was
you know what I'm saying, Chuck? So it came down to a field goal, but teams build up momentum on those wins. I think the Giants are going to play spoiler for either the Cowboys or the Eagles. I don't think the Giants are going to go anywhere. We did say on my show that Saquon Barkley was probably going to be the comeback player of the year. There was so many players coming back from injuries from last year, but so far this guy's looking like the real deal. And losing Shepard, that's really going to hurt because they don't have a lot of people that they can throw the ball to. But I think the Giants are going to, I don't think they're a playoff team, but I think they could probably mix things up and make things interesting for Dallas and Philly.
Yeah, I gotta say, Saquon Barkley's just playing possessed right now. I haven't seen him play this hard since his last year at Penn State in his first year with the Giants. Because after that, the injury bugs kind of hit and everything, and his running style is a little bit different and it's a little bit more prone to injury, I say, compared to normal backs. But this season, even seeing him out in public at boxing fights and it feels like there's a little bit of a different demeanor with that guy this year. I can a little more intensity, I think, compared to the norm with that. Let's talk about the Commanders real quick. I mean, this organization top down is just a mess. Daniel Snyder's a mess. The organization's just a mess. Hey, I like Ron Rivera. he's a stand-up guy. But the day that they traded for Carson Wentz and took on that massive contract was pretty much a death blow when they could have had Matt Ryan for pretty much the same price for 3 seasons less. I mean, how bad is this Commanders team? I mean, they actually got shut out for a half by the Lions. I mean, this is pretty pathetic.
Go ahead, Sean.
No, I didn't say nothing.
Okay. You know, the Commanders, oh my goodness. I agree with you when it comes to just the organization. You know, they've taken such a hit with Snyder and just mismanagement. So unfortunate for a good coach like Ron Rivera, because, you know, I have a lot of respect for Ron from his days back at with the Chargers as a defensive coordinator, you know, to getting that head coaching job. And you know, he's moved around the league. He's still a good guy. And you know what? He's a smart guy, because if you could really notice, he distances himself away from his owner. You never hear him comment much about Snyder. This guy just does his job. He coaches, and Ron is always going to take care of Ron Rivera. I like that. But, you know, the Carson Wentz thing, it's like 3 strikes you out. You know, if you can't get it done here, I don't know. I don't know if he's probably going to be, you know, demoted down to a backup at this point if it doesn't work out in Washington. But I don't know. I like the defense of the Commanders at one time, and now it looks like, you know, with Kerrigan retiring out of nowhere, I don't know if they saw that coming, you know, and now they got with Chase Young, so they don't really have a lot of star players on that team, and Carson Wentz definitely is not one of them. But off the field, it's going to be interesting to see what the commissioner, what the NFL is going to do with Snyder, because I don't think, Sean, they're going to stop until they take some action on Daniel Snyder.
Now let's go to the game I was watching, because I was watching the Green Bay Packers and it was the Patriots and the Packers on the TV. Then I was watching the Broncos and the Raiders on my laptop. Now I picked the Broncos to be second in the AFC West, because it was going to come down between the Chiefs and the Chargers, the Chiefs, Chargers, and the Broncos, because I had the Broncos second. But the Raiders, they won their first game, so I wasn't surprised, because that was like a must-win game. And then I look at the Denver Broncos, like ever since the first game of this season, their offense has been clicking. But at least Russell Wilson didn't play that bad, because he had like 237 passing yards, 29 rushing. He had a touchdown on the rushing, and he had 2 passing touchdowns. So I got to give credit to that. Yeah. But as I look into this Broncos team, I'm saying to myself, like, this team should be better than that, especially since you're 2-2. They're barely 500. And they almost lost to the 49ers. So when you look at the Denver Broncos, what do you think is keep up? What's the word I want to say? What do you think is keep distracting them?
Well, I think Nathaniel Hackett distracted them with trying to kick a 64-yard field goal, you know, in the first game of the season.
Decision.
Yeah, I mean, I think Russell Wilson is just trying to. You know, he's a diplomatic guy. He's gonna do the right things, say the right things, because, hey, you know, they give him a lot of money, so he's not gonna, you know, stir up the pot right now. But when the season started, Sean, you looked at like 4 good quarterbacks here. You know, maybe Carr is the worst of the 4, but you got Mahomes, you got Wilson, and you got Herbert. You're thinking like, wow, this is really going to be pretty interesting.
Exactly.
But it's, you know, because the Raiders got off to a horrible start, the Broncos still are relevant. And I think as Russell Wilson gets familiar with the team, get acclimated to the team, I tell you what, man, they took a big hurt with Javonte Williams going out. That's going to hurt them a little bit. Anytime you lose a good running back like that, I mean, it just takes away from your game planning a little bit. I know the next man up or come in and do what they're supposed to do. But I think Russell hasn't really taken charge of the team. I don't know if Nathaniel Hackett trusts him. You should trust somebody that's getting paid $242 million, right?
Because, like, when you look at it, it's like when you hear about, like, the coaching staff, it seems like it was so bad they had to have somebody to help Nathaniel Hackett. I was like, this is not good. And then like before Russell Wilson came to the Broncos, it's not like the Denver Broncos defense was that bad because they always had a nice, talented defense, and they had Jared Judy. But it's just a matter of like this team on the same page. But it seems to me like it's going to take weeks to see this team get into the same page. And I'm gonna probably be the first one to say this. I don't see if they keep playing like this, I don't see the Denver Broncos beating Kansas City.
No. I tell you what, Kansas City, everyone had pretty much, shut it down on Kansas City. Knowing Mahomes is Mahomes, but everyone is like, okay, they don't have Tyreek Hill. How they going to do it? Well, they still getting it done.
Exactly.
And Andy Reid is such a good, coach, a good game plan. When you saw what Patrick Mahomes was doing the other night, that was just crazy.
Right.
Just nonsense. So
exactly. I think they'll be all right.
I think the Broncos are really going to be in trouble because it's the Chargers. It seems like it's the Chargers and the Chiefs division right now.
Exactly. That's what it looks like to be.
Yeah, I think the Raiders and Broncos are playing for last and dead last.
Exactly, because that's what it looks like, because the Chargers almost beat the Kansas City Chiefs on Thursday night. They almost did. But I believe when they play each other again, I can see the Chargers beating the Chiefs. I could see that. But it looks to me like the Broncos just like, and you know what? We're not going to beat the Chiefs. It seems to be that way. And it looks to me, it wouldn't surprise me if the Chargers is in second place, because before the season even started, I said the Chargers should make it to the playoffs, but it was a matter of like, can they really close out games? That's my only concern about the Chargers, especially in the fourth quarter.
And the Chargers will get better. I think, they beat Houston, a team that they lost to last year that almost knocked them out the playoffs, or basically it really did. They didn't see that upset coming. They go to Houston and beat them, this week to let them know, hey, we're in charge here. But here's another thing, though. You look at injuries. Injuries are going to play a big part, too, because, you lose Keenan Allen there. I think he might make it back before the season's over. Javonte Williams is gone. The Raiders don't have any excuse. They don't have any injuries at all. And the Chiefs don't have any injuries. And they should be playing better football than what they are.
Exactly. Because I knew, like, everybody knows, like, the Raiders have the offense, but they don't have the defense to stop anybody.
No, they don't.
Here's another one who I'm very disappointed at, even though I am a Cowboys fan. The team I'm very disappointed is the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, you lose to the Tennessee Titans by a touchdown, and I'm saying, like, man, this Colts team not only is bad, but most of their players can't even stay healthy to save their own life, because especially Michael Pittman, because Michael Pittman is injury prone. So that's why I'm like, I probably have to release him on my fantasy football roster. I know it's early. But I'm looking at this team as like, they're still having the same problems. They can't even protect the quarterback. There'll be times where they'll be able to play defense. I will, because they gave away 24 points. But it seems to me still they cannot solve their quarterback issues after Andrew Luck has been out. But it seems to me like Chris Ballard is like not doing his job correctly, because it's not only head coach, but it's also the GM they're calling out.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I tell you what, Frank Reich, man, he's in a tough position there. You got to think somebody's going to go this year. And I think the fact that they brought Matt Ryan over, I don't know. Frank Reich is going to have to really depend on him to save his job.
Exactly.
And they got a game coming up here this week. We're gonna have to see. I think offense-wise, they look good on offense. I think they got it together. And I agree with you on Michael Pittman. You never know when he's gonna be there or not. But Matty Ice has to get that ball in somebody's hands. And this season so far, I've seen some good Matty Ice. I've seen some bad Matty Ice when he holds on to that ball too long. But man, in this division, the AFC South is up for grabs, because Jacksonville is your best team.
Basically, because you're thinking like, this is probably one of the worst divisions in the AFC, but now all of a sudden
it's up for grabs.
Exactly. That's surprising, because you got Tennessee, you got Jacksonville and Tennessee, because I thought it was Tennessee and Indianapolis, but now it's like Jacksonville. How's Jacksonville
Tennessee is just, I don't know what's going on with Tennessee. They got that, and Sean, here's one thing I always say on my show. The
Sure.
window of opportunity is like this, man. 1 year that window can be like this, and you can just ask Buffalo Bills. You have a small amount of time to get through that window because other teams are going to get better. And it's just like everyone that has the Buffalo Bills going to the Super Bowl. Well, it looks that way, but you still got to play. You got to play that schedule. And, you know, Buffalo should have been in the Super Bowl last year because they should have beat Kansas City.
Exactly.
And who knows if that opportunity is going to come again.
Because I would have said Buffalo way better than Kansas City in terms of the defense. There's no question about that. Because remember last year, Kansas City's defense was really bad, but they're better than this year than last year.
Yeah, they are. They are.
I will give them credit that, but that's how I know it's between like the Kansas City from this year and the Chiefs from last year. Because that defense was so bad, I'd even select them on my fantasy football. Like, there's no way I'm not getting the Chiefs defense. I knew. So
and they got rid of the Honey Badger. You know, and you would think that their defense took a hit, but it's going to come down. And then you got to look at other teams that might get hot. You know, this is a long season, 17 games is a long season. Don't count Baltimore out of this thing yet. And Buffalo, I hope that their head is not being filled with everyone picking them because, man, you get into the playoffs, things are a little bit different. You know, I know it's tough to win in Buffalo in January. Now, if anyone has to go to Buffalo and play in January, good luck trying to win when it's minus 25 degrees up there.
Now, let's speak of Baltimore. Now, one thing I like about Baltimore is Lamar Jackson because even though they did lose to Buffalo, thank God Josh Allen saved my life. I'm looking at this Baltimore. It's like this. Okay, they have the offense, they have the wide receivers, but it's just they have issues with wide receivers and stuff. And they're in a tough AFC North, you know what I mean? So I'm not gonna say, it's a one-way ticket, nothing like that. So when I look at Baltimore, I'm like, you know, it's early in the season. They still have an opportunity to make it to the playoffs than they did last year because last year they were filled with injuries. So when I look at this Ravens team, it's like, you know, you never know what the Ravens defense is in terms of playing somebody, but they should learn. They should be better than last year. They should be better in terms of that defense because we knew it was going to be a shootout on Sunday. Because let's be honest, okay. So that's why that's why I think about Baltimore.
I think Baltimore I think that division is probably going to come down to Baltimore and Cincinnati because Cincinnati is rebounding. But don't count out Cleveland too. Cleveland is looking good, you know, believe it or not.
Even though they lost.
So it's going to be a 3-team race. Unfortunately, the Steelers are not, you know, doing too well. They're going through a quarterback change, so we'll see. That could be an advantage for Pittsburgh, putting a quarterback out there that no one has game film on. So I know he came out. It's tough when you called to come into a game the way Pickett came in, but who knows? This next game starting, he might pose a threat to defenses who don't have enough game film on them. But I think Lamar Jackson is playing with a purpose. He's playing for a contract too, you know. Right. So I think Baltimore is going to be okay. I think it'll come down to perhaps Baltimore and Cincinnati as far as that AFC North division.
Now, speaking of the AFC North, I'm talking about Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, because I wasn't surprised that the Jets beat the Steelers because let's be honest, the Steelers defense is not that great. Let's be honest. That was like, not surprised. But I look at Pickett because Pickett, man, he was 10 for 13. You know what I mean? 120 yards. You know what I mean? So I'm like, you know what? It's not that the offense is bad. It's like the defense is not that great. That's why I feel like that's why Pittsburgh is the reason why Pittsburgh is losing. And then you also got to look at Trubisky because, like, where Trubisky was at quarterback, it seems like everybody on the Steelers offense wasn't on the same page. But then when Pickett was, exactly. But when Pickett was playing, it was like the environment was totally different. If you notice that,
and that's why Tomlin put him in. He said he needed that spark in the offense that he just didn't see, and that's going to happen when you. I mean, one thing people got to remember too, Pickett played his entire college career in that stadium where the Steelers play. That's an advantage at some point. At some point in time, that kid's going to get comfortable. And watch out when he does. And I think they're banking on the future more than the present, you know, because a rookie is a rookie. But I think in the long run, years ago, Sean, and I'm an old school cat. Years ago, the Steelers let a quarterback get out of their backyard and go to the Miami Dolphins, and that was Dan Marino. When they saw Kenny Pickett's stats, I knew, and I was at the draft in Vegas. I said they're not going to let this happen again. Right. They're going to bank on the future. This kid got a long career, in front of him, way past Mike Tomlin days. I think they're banking on the future. I think Tomlin, his record of having a successful season is in jeopardy this year because you got a rookie quarterback. If you done made the decision to go with this guy, you're gonna have to take the punches as they come this year. But I think this kid, when he gets comfortable playing in a place that he's already played 4 years in that stadium, right, and who knows how long he's got to be a Steeler, that kid is gonna be good at some point in time.
And I don't think they really did their homework before they even started picking, because they was like, you know what, he's a rookie. Let's start Trubisky, because Trubisky, if you think about it, he's on his third team, by the way, because he played Chicago, Buffalo, and then Pittsburgh. And that was like, when they announced that he was the starting QB, it was like, that doesn't make no absolutely sense. I'm like, he played at Pittsburgh, so it's like, come on.
Well, Sean, hey, one name they didn't mention was Mason Rudolph, so that's one guy that they certainly wasn't going to start.
Exactly, he was invisible. So I was like, all right.
Yeah, Mason hasn't been the same since Myles Garrett hit him on the head with the helmet. I don't know. They probably should have checked him for some concussion there, because he just. I think I think psychologically that just did something to Mason Rudolph. I know Mason said that Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett said that Mason, said the N-word or something similar to that on the field. We don't know if that was true or not.
Exactly.
But I can tell you what, though, Sean, it seemed to have bothered Mason Rudolph more than anybody, because I don't know, he just hasn't been the same since.
Exactly. I do know about that. Now, last night, the 49ers beat the Rams by 15 points. And it looked to me like Matt Stafford was playing like he was playing in the Detroit Lions.
Oh, my goodness.
That was so bad. And not only that, the running game was so bad that none of the runners had like more than 50 rushing yards. Darren Henderson had like 27 for 7 carries. Akers had 13 because he carried 8. And then Powell only carried the ball once for 11 yards. And I'm looking at this team, it's like, is this Rams team's like slouching, or is just like they just forgot like they're defending champs or something? Because this is not, if you're the LA Rams, you're thinking to yourself like, this is not a good start for us.
It's that hangover. It's that Super Bowl hangover I tell people about. You saw it with the Bengals. You're seeing it with the Rams. And I agree with you too, Sean, that I thought that first game when Buffalo went in there and beat the brakes off them, I thought that Matthew Stafford couldn't look any worse than what he did in that game. And then last night, he actually did look worse. And I don't know. But now the one thing, too, is that the 49ers own the Rams in the regular season. But in the playoffs, they cannot beat them for some reason. And I think the Rams are going to get it together. And I don't know what's going on with Odell Beckham. I don't know. They got Allen Robinson. You got guys on the team you're not even throwing the ball to. Right. Cooper Kupp, you can only throw it to him so many damn times a game, right?
Exactly. Because I'm glad you brought that point, because when I think about that rivalry, the 49ers own the Rams, including like in the playoffs, especially like you can go all the way to like Joe Montana years.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because in the 80s, the Rams were like the second best team in that division.
Always the second best. Yep.
And not even what was that guy's name? Chris Everett couldn't even beat the 49ers.
Yeah, I remember. I remember somebody else calling him Chrissy Everett. You remember that?
Jim Rome. It's still on YouTube to this day.
Yeah, that's a classic right there.
Oh man, I'm glad you brought that up. I was like, wait a second, because he did play at I think he did play at New Orleans at one point, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I tell you what, the Rams are going to be okay. It's just that they're going to have the run game. They don't have a running game, They only got one person that they pass to. They're so predictable now.
Exactly. And then also the Seattle Seahawks. I'm very surprised at the way the Seahawks is, but I don't think they're going to make it to the playoffs because I think they'll have like the little run and then like, whoop, they're not that good. And I got to tell you, man, the Seahawks did not even punt the football. That's crazy. I've never seen a game like that before. You know what I mean? Because you're thinking like, wait, Geno Smith doing well against the Lions because, both teams are not well on defense and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But what's your reaction the way Geno Smith is playing? Because I never thought that the Seahawks even would beat the Broncos on Monday night. I was like, come on, not Geno Smith.
You know what, Sean? I tell you what, and I have said bad things about the Seahawks this year that I regret now because I said they had two of the worst quarterbacks on one team, But I tell you what, a lot of times, man, opportunity, Geno Smith is taking advantage of an opportunity that he may not ever get again. And he has proven there's no quarterback controversy in Seattle. I mean, he's out there balling out. And you got to be happy for him because no one has really cashed in on him. No one is banking on him. Right. You play behind Russell Wilson, and we saw Russell was losing his touch. But I mean, I'm happy for Geno. I'm happy that he's able to go out there and show what he's got. And I think Seattle, I think they're going to stick with him.
And I think the way Seattle is playing, I think after this season, I think I'll probably be the first one to say this. I can see Pete Carroll staying for another year because of Geno Smith's performance. Because before the season even started, Pete Carroll's job, he was on the hot seat.
Yeah, that's true. You're right.
Including the GM. They were both on the hot seat.
Geno saving his job.
Exactly. Just like Russell Wilson did before he even started. Because before then, it was Charlie Whitehurst was the starting QB for the Seahawks.
Mm-hmm. No, I remember those days.
So
yeah, you taking me down memory lane there, Sean. Ain't heard that name in a while.
Right. Now, when we were talking about those two teams that were like on a slouch between the Bengals and the Rams. Now, when I look at these two, I'm saying, you know what? If you told me who's between those two, between the Rams and the Bengals, will get out of this slouch, I would probably say the Rams because the Rams are in a tougher division, even though Bengals are in a tough division in the North. But I say the Rams, but it's just a matter of like how they're going to do in the playoffs. You know what I mean? So I'm looking at this like, you know what? They'll be all right, but it's just like how they're going to do in the playoffs. That's really concerned me if you're a Rams fan.
Well, see, the one thing about the 17-game season is that you can almost afford to struggle early and recover. And depending on when your bye week is, and I don't know when their bye week is, but I think those two teams, they went through this last year. They knew the Bengals got hot late in the season and got to the Super Bowl. The Rams, same thing with the Rams. Yep. So when those teams struggle like that, that's when you have to, be concerned that, okay, they're going to turn it around. They'll get it together. That division in the NFC West, I still think it's going to belong to the Rams. However, now that Jimmy G has this job, who knows? Because, we didn't think Jimmy G was going to be a factor in this thing now.
But it is now.
And that could change.
Exactly. And one more question before I let you go. Because I'm looking at this Carolina Panthers situation. It's like Matt Rule, he's not doing well. And Baker Mayfield, I told everybody before he even got drafted, I was like, I don't think Baker Mayfield is that even great. And I have been proven right. People look at me crazy because of them progressive commercials. Because it looks like he stopped doing that. So he probably
thank goodness, huh?
I'm looking at the situation. Carolina's like, I don't see Matt Rule even being. I think Matt Rule will probably be the first head coach to be fired and probably be more likely to head back to college because that's what it looks like right now. And then I'm looking at this like this team needs a rebuild. This Carolina Panthers team needs a rebuild ASAP.
I agree with you on that one. I think because they got Baker Mayfield, they're probably going to take their chances on Baker Mayfield more than Matt Rule. I think Matt Rule will probably be the first coach to get fired this year because he's not using his player. He's got healthy players out there, and he's still not using his players to his advantage, and he's not making good play calls. So I kind of think Matt Rule will probably be fired. I think you see CMC will stay there, you see Baker stay there, but Matt Rule will probably be fired before they get rid of those players.
I absolutely agree. Now, work about let's just find you on social media and your show as well, because I know Ken Thompson does this show on that station.
Yeah, Ken Thompson is on KDWN. I'm on KDWN every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Pacific time.
Okay,
so they can go in. They can just, if you got the iHeartRadio app, you can just type in KDWN, listen to the show there. You can also catch the Mean Gene Show podcast on iHeartRadio. I do shows from the Virgin Hotels in Las Vegas also. So we do those shows. On the weekends, they keep me busy, Sean. I do like 5 shows sometimes on the weekend, 4 in Vegas and then 1 at KDWN.
Okay.
And then on Twitter, they can follow me at it's Sports Kings at Twitter.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's Twitter at Sports Kings. I got it backwards.
Okay. That's why I was like, I do have you on Twitter, by the way. I do have you on Twitter because I did have you on my show 7 years ago, back when it was audio. I remember.
Okay.
Because it was like on Yahoo Sports.
Yeah, it was Yahoo way back in the day, man. Way back in the day, Sean. That was a long time ago. Yeah, we was down in Houston on Yahoo Sports Radio. Yeah.
I remember that. I was like, I had him on my show before because this is the second time.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That's
and hey, I have to get you on the, because I have 2 shows. I got the Sports Kings and I got the Mean Gene Show. So whichever one you want to come on, we get you on there and we talk some more.
I'll probably talk with more the Kings, especially.
All right.
especially me doing daily fantasy now.
Okay. And we don't want to talk about fantasy because I'm 0-4 and I'm struggling for a win. Hey, I'm struggling. Look, all my quarterbacks, all my players are getting hurt. This is the worst fantasy football season I've ever had.
I'm probably the same way as well, especially with Russell Wilson and what was that guy's name from Cleveland tight end, Joku.
I had Tua. Tua's hurt. Jameis, he got hurt. I'm hurting.
That's the worst. That's probably the worst quarterback right now, Jameis Winston, for fantasy football.
Yeah, I can't even get a trade. I'm just gonna have to give him up for a kicker.
All right, talk to me later on LinkedIn, by the way, and see if I for an appearance because I'm glad.
All right, Sean. Hey, thanks for having me on, man.
You too. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Mean Gene to the program. So we are going to be closing this out, by the way. So my co-host is not available at this moment, so there will be no show on Thursday. But however, here's what I'm going to do. There will be an article on the Sports for America website for like your daily fantasy for DFS lineup. It's called Super Draft. So there's going to be a QR code, by the way. All right. So it's going to be the hot players on that day, and then the news and all that stuff. And there's going to be a QR code. So if you have like a phone or like a tablet, you'll be able to scan that QR code. So look that out, by the way. And by the way, you can follow Sports for America on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And you can also, by the way, because my background is not doing so great, by the way, I'm going to show you the link, by the way. All right, there we go. So you can, there we go. Let me get this banner out the way. So you can follow the S&P Sports Show on Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and Apple Podcasts, by the way. And also, Die Hard Fan with Cornelius Cole tomorrow from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Sports for America. You guys have a nice and wonderful evening, and there is no player props. So check out on Thursday for the Super Draft DFS lineup on Thursday and your NFL TV map, by the way, so you can see which game will be played in your area. So thank you so very much. You have a nice evening. So take care, ladies and gentlemen.